Nothing I did for you, but that is one great difference between us. Compliments always take you by surprise, and me never. What could be more natural than his asking you again? He could not help seeing that you were about 5 times as pretty as every other woman in the room. No thanks to his
Gallantry.
gallantry for that. Well, he certainly is very agreeable, and I give you leave to like him. You have like many stupid person.
Okay, Rajan, thank you. So here you can see Elizabeth's character is unfolding, right? Specifically with comparison to the other sisters, the other Bennet sisters. And also, again, the comparison is very strong between Jane and Elizabeth, because Jane is like this ideal lady, right? Even though she's coming from this lower upper class, she has all these qualities of a lady. Even in the movie you can see that, right? Very well spoken, as in the ideal lady according to the societal standards, not like Elizabeth. So here when they are alone, they can be free, as in they can freely speak of their minds, what is in their minds. They can speak of their minds, right? Yeah. So the former means Jane, who had been cautious in her praise of Mr. Bingley before, expressed to her sister how very much she admired him. So what does that say about this bond between Jane and Elizabeth, reverence? So earlier, Jane has been very cautious in her praise of Mr. Bingley. Cautious means very careful in her praise of Mr. Bingley before, initially. That means when she was with the others. But with Elizabeth, she is expressing how very much she admired him. So what does that say about their bond?
She trying to give her sister support.
Yeah, so in a way, Reverend, kind of, it shows that they are very close, in a way. Yeah, very close sisterhood. And also the fact that you can share anything with someone. Yeah, maybe you can refer to your bond as well. The bond between three of you, maybe, right? So you are also very close, right? So that means you are accepted without judgments, right? That is also there. So Jane knows that she would be accepted without any judgment by Elizabeth. So with her family even, that won't be there, that non-judgmental presence, right? Yeah, so Elizabeth is not judgmental. Non-judgmental. Should I write the word? No, right, okay. Non-judgmental. Because if you are asked to describe the characters, if there's a character description, maybe to analyze one of the characters, let's say Elizabeth, then you can talk about all these things, all these characteristics.
In my opinion, James think Elizabeth is the most trustworthy person.
Exactly, Reverend. That's what happens here. And also on one hand most trustworthy, and on the other hand she's not going to judge Jane, because you can see Jane is always, it's like she's afraid of the society. She doesn't show her emotions, and that's why Bingley and Darcy also think that Jane is after Bingley's money. Can you remember? Yeah, so he thinks like that because Jane is not expressive. So you may write that there as well. Because she had been cautious, that means she's not very expressive with everyone. And also the fact that she says he is just what a young man ought to be. That's the perspective of Bingley. Just what a young man ought to be. So that shows, Reverend, that Bingley is identified as the ideal gentleman. So it's not Darcy. And don't you think it's very controversial, because usually the hero of the novel is admired, but the writer does not admire the male protagonist, even though there's this female protagonist we discussed. We can to an extent identify Darcy as the male protagonist, because he is anyway the lover of the female protagonist. So there you can see. So sensible, good humoured and lively. So he has all these gentleman-like qualities, and again which Darcy does not have. So you may write that as well, Reverend, if you want, that Darcy doesn't have all of these qualities. So this is like kind of a compliment to his character. Yeah, the other half of Darcy. And I don't know whether you have observed this. When we watch all these movies, there's this specific category called Hallmark movies in Hollywood. They're not like, not worthy watching, but in all these kind of light-hearted, just romance movies, you can see there's this major couple, the predominant couple who are like the protagonists, and then there's this second lead. Yeah, so that can be a couple, and all these Korean teledramas also, there's this idea that kind of these teenagers are obsessing over Korean teledramas, so they are also this second lead, and there are that there are these arguments. I have seen some arguments over the first lead and the second lead, who is better. Likewise, you can see that who do you think is the first lead in this novel and the second lead. And here it is not like just one male or female character, but couples. First lead as a couple and second lead also a couple. Who is the first lead couple? Yeah, Darcy and Elizabeth. And the second lead couple would be Jane and Bingley. And here you can see something very strange, because this is not a time where there were all these first leads and second leads. Not the 21st century, or not the modern times where we have all these kind of new ideas coming up. So again, that shows you how modern Jane Austen was, right? Yeah, even modern than these people we have nowadays, all these movie makers, because in all these Hallmark movies and also Korean movies, because those are like kind of cliche reference, not like the classic movies. Not, you won't get all these in all these classic movies, right? Because classic movies are so different. There are no structures in these classic movies, right? Yeah. I'm recording the lecture, Reverend, for Reverend, yeah, because you can save the space. I will anyway upload it to YouTube if you want to record. No problem at all, but I will anyway upload because you can save the space, right? Okay. So, yeah, I was referring to this idea of first leads and second leads, right? Yeah. And what can you see here, Reverend? Because when we compare these with all these famous cliche movies, if we consider Hallmark, so what I have noticed is in these Hallmark movies, the first lead is always like a white couple, and the second lead would be, if the movie is American specifically, they would be Black American. And it's not like an interracial relationship, because these days we can see so many interracial marriages are happening. Even with Prince Harry, he got married to a kind of a woman with a Black American presence, Black American roots. So such things are happening always. But in these movies, what you can see is it is not interracial, not happening between races. So the first lead is always white and pretty, and the second lead would be kind of that even with Black Americans you can spot several pretty people, pretty and handsome people, but they would be like less pretty. So to complement the first lead, their presence is to highlight the first lead. It's just like having bridesmaids in a wedding to kind of complement the bride. So only recently I got to know that the bridesmaids are like not given kind of a proper makeup like the bride. so that bride can be highlighted, right? That's why the bridesmaids kind of enter first, and only after that the bride is coming, like that. So always the bride would be the highlight of the kind of the wedding, something like that you can see in all these cliche movies. And here what you can see, I was talking about this modern context to refer to this idea of first lead and second lead. Even in the movie you can see this. So the first lead, is it different from this modern context, or what do you think? Who is the perfect couple in kind of societal standards?
Second.
Yeah, second lead, Jane and Bingley. So usually if we refer to this modern context, or if we refer to the modern standards, so the second lead should be the first lead. Jane and Bingley should be in the spotlight. But you can see how different and modern, how modern, or even you can say postmodern as well. How postmodern, these two were, right? Yeah. Even I don't mind if you write postmodern. Yeah, you know about postmodern literature, Reverend, right? Yeah. I think in your syllabus even we have all these. I actually wanted to have a look. Let me check. I shared the syllabus with you, Reverend, right? I just gave you the syllabus to take a picture. Let me see whether I have it here in emails, because we anyway need to identify what are we going to discuss in future as well. We are anyway going to do Great Expectations. So we have done up to now poetry. All the poets we have completed. And then, Pride and Prejudice, Great Expectations. Let me check. You also have it, right? Because the semester is like only 12 weeks long, Reverend, we are in trouble. We won't be able to finish the syllabus anyway. Yeah, you didn't know?
Before say 13 weeks.
Okay, 13 maybe, but I recently got to know it's only 12. I'm not sure. I think it's 13. Good if it is 13. Yeah, maybe it's 13. I will just check it. We'll see what can we finish. Okay, so we have completed introduction to the romantic period, romantic poetry. It is like for 5 weeks it was romantic poetry and Victorian period. We have finished this Victorian poetry as well. So we have covered a lot anyway. Charles Dickens, we will do Charles Dickens from Victorian literature. Yeah, we have incorporated Pride and Prejudice as well, 4th. Okay, 4th and 5th. Yes, Reverend?
Do you mind sending the syllabus again?
Yeah, of course, Reverend, I will share it. No problem. Yeah, you took some pictures as far as I remember. I will send it. So we couldn't do Victorian poetry, Reverends, right? Did we do the Light Brigade? My last touches? No, we did not. I remember doing this with someone else, Light Brigade. I think I did with the second year general, Sadeep and all those. No, we did not. We have to do Victorian poetry as well, but we will do Charles Dickens, and after that we can do Victorian poetry. I don't think we would be able to finish Wuthering Heights, but if time permits, we will see. Anyway, we have completed 2 books, as in we are going to complete 2 books, no problem. But it's good if we can touch something from the modernist literature. You have James Joyce, modernist drama, new criticism. Yeah, let's see. We would be able to complete kind of as in, yeah, more than 70% of the syllabus. Yes, okay. I will send it later, Reverend, right? Because I have opened it with this cam scanner, and yeah, that's problematic. I will send it. If I forget to send it, please remind me, right? Yeah, okay. So where were we? Yeah, and also here you can see sensible, good humored, lively, and I never saw such happy manners. What is the idea there, Reverend? Is it something negative or positive? I never saw such happy manners. Positive. So that means I have never seen such happy manners from anyone else. So he's like the best. So much ease. So I told that he is this extrovert, so it is very easy for him to mingle with people. Yeah. So do you identify yourselves as introverts or extroverts? Or ambiverts, introverts? Then you know how much it would be difficult, right, to deal with people at times. Yeah. So you can kind of identify with Darcy. Yes. So you can kind of read his mind, how difficult for him that might be. Yeah. And also with such perfect good breeding. So breeding means not usually now we associate breeding with dogs, right? Yeah. Dog breeds and all. So breeding means bringing up. Good bringing up. As in like good family background, Reverend? How he was brought up? Good bringing up. So in Great Expectations, always Mrs. Josie that you are brought up by hand. Yeah, something like that. So this refers to his family background specifically. The fact that he is coming from a good family background. And Elizabeth is adding, he is also handsome. So here you can see Jane is starting with all the good and polite points. She is not mentioning that he is handsome. So because she wants to kind of cover up everything, it's like sugar coating. We have discussed about this side of sugar coating, right? Just like a tablet is sugar coated before it is given to kids, something like that. So she is kind of covering up her true emotions. What she wants to say is he's handsome. But she is not kind of coming to the point. But Elizabeth is very direct, you can see. So you may write it there. He is also handsome, replied Elizabeth, which a young man ought likewise to be if he possibly can. And not only direct but very realistic.
Is very good for this someone who is hiding their emotion.
Someone who's hiding their emotions, kind of like a concealed emotions, Reverend, right? Yeah. Okay, let me think.
Modest.
Kind of, Reverend, but when you say modest, it's like that you are kind of hiding your emotions, not because you want to do that, but to be modest in front of the society. That is done for the society in a way. So modest cannot be taken as the exact term for that. Let me think whether there's a term. I don't think there's a specific term though. So basically someone who hides his or her emotions can be identified as an introvert specifically. That is a characteristic of an introvert most of the time, right? Yeah. Maybe a concealer, yeah, also kind of a, you can say a concealer of emotions, right? Yeah. So modesty is something that is kind of like a social standard, a social requirement that you have to behave or act in a specific manner, specifically in this society. And his character is thereby complete. So here Elizabeth is kind of, don't you think she is kind of being sarcastic to an extent? That his character is almost complete because people, cannot be complete, right? Yeah, even when it comes to Buddhist perspective, we only consider like Lord Buddha to be complete maybe, right? Yeah, so something like that. So in this society anyway, people are not kind of, considered complete. Yeah, you can see. So I was very much flattered by his asking me to dance a second time. I did not expect such a compliment. So here you can see that it's like, Jane is over the moon literally about all these getting a second chance. You know the phrase over the moon, right? That is like so happy, overjoyed. Did not you? I did for you. So what does that say about Elizabeth's character, Reverend? You can even think of it in Buddhist terms. Yes, Reverend? Exactly. So Mudita, right? Yeah, so she is very happy. The ability of feeling happy about the others. Yeah. Reverend, if it is difficult, you can remove the mask, right? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. So, but that is one great difference between us. Compliments always take you by surprise and me never. So here she is kind of talking about compliments about Jane. Yeah, compliments always take you by surprise. So compliments about you, about Jane. So you are kind of, again that shows that Jane is also humble. So that means Jane deserves all these compliments because she is so ladylike, so graceful, so pretty. So she deserves all this, but Jane does not expect them. So it is like she doesn't have this high self-esteem, and also she is not proud in a way. Yeah, there you can see Jane is not a character who is very proud. When you refer to the idea of pride, you can refer to all these characters. And me never. So again that shows Elizabeth can read characters very much. Yeah. That is one great difference between us. Here she is reading the characters of both her and her sisters. Yeah. A very good character reader. You can identify Elizabeth as a very good reader of characters. And what could be more natural than he asking you again? So that means she is referring to this idea that you deserve all these compliments. It's not like that you have to be surprised by all these. He could not help seeing that you were about 5 times as pretty as every other woman in the room, including herself. So that is the beauty of it, including Elizabeth. Yeah, so when she refers to all the other women in the room, she refers to herself as well. And she's totally okay about that. Right? So there's this idea that women do not like to compliment each other. Right? Yeah, there's that idea, misconception in the society. And also I saw, I'm not someone who kind of appreciates Women's Day because, it is something absurd to have a day, like only a day for women. Right? Yeah. So, but again, you can see with all these posts, I saw that be a woman that fixes others' crown, right? Yeah, not someone who kind of takes it back, something like that, right? Yeah. And yes, no thanks to his gallantry for that. Gallantry means courage, reverence. Courage, yeah, as in bravery. So it's almost like he was brave to do this, brave to ask, right? So something like that. And yes, no thanks to his gallantry for that. Well, he certainly is very agreeable as a person, and I give you leave to like him. So here you can see it's almost like, what do you see here with Elizabeth? It's like she's, yeah, yeah, something like, and Mudita, exactly, Reverend. And also something else, I give you leave to like him. So what does that show? Elizabeth is actually younger than Jane.
Also, she has a chance to fall in love with one day.
Yeah. Not exactly, Reverend. It's like, I give you leave to like him. It's not like that because Elizabeth is not such a person. If this was uttered by someone else, yeah, your point.
She gave chance. She gives her sister support.
Yeah. Yes. Support. And also, yeah, support is there. And also, Reverend, she's kind of, don't you think it's like granting permission for Elizabeth to take a move? Yeah, it's almost like kind of a parental presence, right? I give you leave to like him. I have no first hand experience because, as I told you, I'm an only child, right? But here you can see sometimes younger siblings can be mature than the elder siblings, right? Sometimes they can give all these advices. Yeah, something like that. Here also you can see that I give you leave to like him.
The way they think is very different, that's why.
Exactly, very different.
Sometimes even though we know the answer,
Mm.
but we couldn't see because we are kept in some like in a box.
Mm.
They see beyond the
Yeah,
box.
thinking outside the box, maybe. Yes. Yeah, can be. And also that happens with age as well. Yeah, so there's this generational kind of idea as well. So here also, and also anyway, Elizabeth is well read, right? That is also there. Even though Elizabeth is younger in age, she has a lot of emotional maturity, and also she's well read. Yeah, I won't use the word educated in the sense because education was there as in the initial education, but not like women those days, they did not have this opportunity to go to Oxford or somewhere. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, in a way, because she's kind of like self-taught. Yes, Reverend, because it's like she reads a lot. Even the opening scene of the movie shows this moment where she reads. Even when she walks, that's something unnatural, right? Yeah, walking and reading happening simultaneously, you might stumble upon something, and yeah. But the idea, even you are kind of reading when you are walking, that speaks volumes of her character, right? Yeah. Yes, Reverend? Exactly, maybe no one does that, right? That can happen when you are an avid reader. There's this idea that you are unable to that resist the temptation to read. When you get a good book, that happens, a kind of a really good book. Yeah,
That makes a difference.
exactly, that makes her different from the others, and that's what makes her different from all the other Bennett sisters as well, not the other women. Can you remember the person that you hated? That sister. So when you compare and contrast these two characters, you can see. And she's also like this, the other complement to Elizabeth's character. It's like their characters are pitted against each other. Yeah, because Elizabeth's character is highlighted, just like this, bride and bridesmaids. Yeah, so there you can see how special Elizabeth's character is, right? And also here you can see she's very critical, Elizabeth. I give you leave to like him. You have liked many a stupider person. So that means Jane has loved several people, not as in, she was not in relationships. That's not what she mentions here. But she has liked, like these people, like, having a crush on, something like that, and many a stupider person. So here you can see Elizabeth is being very direct. So one of her characteristics, immensely direct, and also sharp wit. Yes. Can one of you read, Reverend? From dear Lizzie to their manners are not equal to his. Yes, Reverend. Starting from dear Lizzie and up to I know you do. No, you can read that paragraph up to their manners are not equal to his. I'm reading the last line of that paragraph. So that paragraph starts with I know you do. Yeah, you can complete that paragraph.
I know you do, and it is that which makes the wonder with your
Reverend, can you please start with Dear Lizzie? And I need you to complete, yeah, that paragraph. Yes.
Dear Lizzie, oh, you are very dear to her, you know, to like people in general. You never see a fault in anybody, all what are good and agreeable in your eyes, and never have you speak ill of human being in your life. I would not wish to be hasty in censuring anyone, but I always speak what I think. I know you do, and it is that which makes the wonder with your good sense to be so honestly aligned to the for, for, follies and nuances of others.
Affectation.
Affectation of candles is common enough one meet with it anywhere, but to be candid with the ostentation or desire to take the good of everybody's character and make it still better, and still nothing of the bad belongs to you alone. And so you like these man's sisters too, do you? Their manners are not equal to this. Certainly not at first, but they are very pleasing women when you converse with them. Miss Mrs. Bingley is to like with her brother and keep his off, and I'm not mistaken if we shall not find a very charming neighbors in her. Elizabeth listened in silence but was not convinced. They are being
Okay, Reverend, thank you. We will just finish the first part and then we'll come to that. Okay. Okay, so here you can see Dear Lizzie is kind of a remark which is coming out of like surprise, because the fact that she's being so direct is almost kind of, unbelievable for Jane. Oh, you are a great deal too apt, to like people in general. So here again, Elizabeth is analyzing the character of Jane. You never see a fault in anybody. So there are these people who are very optimistic, right? Yeah. So when you become so optimistic, I mean, people should be optimistic, not pessimistic, right? Optimistic means positive, yeah. So, but again, when you become so optimistic and when you never see a fault in a person, what happens is you are unable to see the reality, Reverend, right? And you are kind of, used by many people. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So then, yeah. Then cannot. I thought you were referring to this being used. No, yeah, exactly. When we refer to that point, yes, very true. So after he kind of, sees all these kind of, for science, there you can see, right? Yeah, what happens. And also in a way, maybe you can, it is just my idea, right? So don't you think that Prince Siddhartha did not see any elderly people as an aging, because King Suddhodana, right, might also, he was kind of, anyway circumstant to aging, right? Maybe he saw aged people, and even his mother was dead up to that moment. Maybe I think Buddhism is referring to the sudden realization, right, of all these kind of, four concepts. Yeah, maybe, we do not know. But again, your point is very much valid, Reverend. Very true. I totally agree. So when you are unable to see all these faults, reality is veiled. Yeah, then it is very difficult for you to unveil that. When this veiling and unveiling. Yeah, all the world are good and agreeable in your eyes. I never heard you speak ill of a human being in my life. So is that possible? Because they are living in a society which is like very much, I won't say corrupted, but very fake, right? The society that they live in. So this cannot be such a utopian world to live in. Can you remember the meaning of utopia? Yeah. Exactly, Uttarakuruti. When I think, as far as I remember, I think I asked you to write a research paper comparing Uttarakuruti and the concept of utopia. Maybe you can.
There was an experiment. One day, monks was addressing at a conference.
Yeah.
He was addressing about Uttarakuruti. So one of Christian audience man asked, "Where is this Uttarakuruti? Can you tell me the place?" Like,
Okay, yeah.
Monks, without arguing with him, he was being silent and he asked, "Only if you saw me that tree."
Apple tree.
Apple tree.
Oh, nice. That is such a nice argument. Yeah. I think the same happened with Panaduravada. Have you heard about it, Reverend? This argument that was between Reverend Migettu Gunananda Thero and a priest. Yeah, so this argument happened, and I think they were discussing about what is this place? What do you call it? This kind of the mountain, the great mountain, which is not real, as in it can be real, we do not know. This ideal place where gods reside. Yeah, the word is at the tip of my tongue, it's not coming out. Okay, so they were referring to this idea, so that this is fake. Obviously, your religion was fake, and he was kind of bringing up the same argument. So you can kind of climb up the apple tree, and then you can see it. When you climb up the apple tree, then it will be visible. So again, it's like all the religions have these sort of anecdotes. So that's how the religions kind of thrive. Yeah, they exist. Yeah, but what we have to do is we have to look at the reality, right? Yeah. Okay, and okay. So where were we? Yes. Yeah. So again, this is a very good reading of Jane's character. You can see Elizabeth as a reader of characters. And I would wish not to be hasty in censuring anyway. Censuring means, Reverend? What is the idea of censuring anyone? It's like kind of, criticizing. Yeah, something like that, censuring. Kind of, giving disapproval. Yes, and where were we? But I always speak what I think. So again, you can see self-awareness. Not only reading others' characters. With Elizabeth, you can see self-awareness. I always speak what I think. So she can read and analyze her own character. Most of the people don't have that, Reverend. They're not self-aware. They just exist. Right, and also they can kind of criticize all the others, but not critical. I mean, you don't have to be critical, but we need to be aware of ourselves, our strengths, our weaknesses, and that's why in all these personal interviews, people ask, "What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses?" Yeah, so that means it is to kind of identify whether you are self-aware. Whether I have been interviewed like that. Not really. So I have faced several interviews, around 5 to 6, but I've never been asked about my strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, but that is a question that people should ask. Usually in other countries, specifically the western part of the world, they are asked. Yes, this question. So when we were doing, I told you that I worked at adult at Shapura, so then we had to conduct personal interviews, mock interviews. So we had to interview like around, as in more than 100 people a day. this assessment, there was this assessment, and I'm sorry, I'm not crying, there's this issue with my eye. It gets teary most of the time. So what happens is, we have to interview all these people. There's this mock interview, and it's like very hectic. We have to ask all these questions, the same set of questions from all the people. And I used to ask this question: what is your strength, the best strength, and what is your kind of worst weakness? And some students are like that, they want to be very perfect in the eyes of us. So then what they do is they say, we have no weaknesses, as if they have reach Nibbana or something like that, because we cannot be perfect, and that is not the answer that we seek when we interview someone. Yeah. So to check self-awareness, and here you can see reference, she is very much self-aware. And I know you do, and it is that which makes the wonder with your good sense to be so honestly blind to the follies and nonsense of others. Again, a very good reading, and also gives a very good picture about Jane's character too. So, honestly blind to the follies.
That's what happens when you are
Yes, Reverend? When you're honest?
too much, you say,
Yeah.
optimistic.
Yeah. When you are too optimistic, and that's the danger of positive thinking to an extent, I would say. You need to be positive, true, I agree, but there's this digitalized and kind of, this marketing side of positive thinking. Yeah, there are all these personal coaches who train people, and that can be very dangerous, because then people, that at a time I heard that there was a daughter who could not comprehend the idea of death of her father, because she was, always praying and always kind of, thinking about positive thinking. It automatically switched off, I guess. If it is kind of too much for you, that's totally fine, Reverend, right? I don't mind. So then people become unable to see the reality of life. And again, here you can see, so she is unable to read characters. Jane is unable to read characters because she thinks, all the world is very good. And that's what happens when we think that all the people are like us. Right? When we tend to kind of, do everything for the others, to be kind. And if we think the whole world is like that, we are in trouble. I'm not saying that we do not have to kind of, change our character. And again, that's another idea, right? No matter how cruel the world is, we can be as much as possible as in, good people.
We need to stop thinking that others are also like us.
Exactly, Reverend. We are in trouble. So it is common enough. So when you are kind of persuaded, or when you kind of, get deceived by this pretension of being frank, right? So that is something common. One meets it everywhere. That happens with kind of, almost everybody. But to be candid again means, Reverend, frank. Very kind of, the best word would be frank. Candid without ostentation. Ostentation means pretentiousness. Again, pretending. Yeah. It's almost like showing off. Or design. What do you think is the idea of design, Reverend? Yes, Reverend? No, not decisions. And also here design means, here the idea is you are kind of, planning to do something evil. Yeah, so here design does not mean kind of, it doesn't have, as in the dictionary definition, doesn't have this idea of planning something evil, but that is what Elizabeth tries to say here. Design, that means with ulterior motives. That would be the best kind of, word or the phrase for that, with ulterior motives. But no, I don't have a marker for it. Yeah, ulterior motives. Yeah, I will send it to the group. Ulterior motives. Oh, you have received some nice photos as well. by Reverend Kanchana. His photos are usually very nice, and he gave me this drawing, the cell kind of the portrait. He has drawn me just like me. It was kind of prettier than me. Okay. Where's your group?
And you say that never think you are ugly because when you take a picture of the moon, you don't say moon is ugly. You say my camera is ugly.
Oh, right. That's nice, Reverend. Okay. What was I going to say? Okay. Ulterior motives. So that means with ulterior motives, design here, the idea of design. With ulterior motives. So that means she's trying to say that you should be kind of not blind to all these ideas, not blind to the design or the ulterior motives of people. And here also you can see another character who has ulterior motives, as in like hidden motives, reference hidden negative motives, hidden negative ideas or plans for you to destroy your life, something like that. Here Mr. Wickham, can you remember? Mr. Wickham is such a person. So he has ulterior, that means negative plans to kind of destroy all these lives of young girls. That's what happens to Darcy's sister. Yeah, and going to happen to Elizabeth's sister as well. If Darcy was not there, that would happen. Yeah. Okay. And to take the good of everybody's character and make it still better, and say nothing of the bad belongs to you alone. So to take the good of everybody's character. So she refers to the goodness of all the characters, because that people can be grey, not black or white, I would say. Most of the people, right? Yeah. Not either kind of like very bad or very good. They are in this middle range, most of the people. So here she is referring to it, to take the good of everybody's character and make it still better. So she is referring to the goodness, at least the tiny goodness of someone's character, and talks about in kind of a predominant way, very much in a kind of a grand manner. And then again where is that, say nothing of the bad. So she is kind of being blind to the bad part, only talking about the goodness of a person. And in a way you can say that is a nice characteristic, because we need to be kind of considerate about the goodness of people, because we are not like perfect anyone. But when we consider the inner idea, that shows it is not kind of very practical, because when we associate with people, what Elizabeth is trying to say is, when we associate with people, we need to read both the good and bad sides of them. Then it is kind of easier for us to mingle with people. When you only see there can be, there can be people with like 90% of goodness and 10% of bad qualities. But again, we need to see both. Maybe that is the idea, without identifying people to be perfect. And that's what happens with politicians as well, reverends, kind of worshipping the politicians, only seeing the goodness, and kind of intentionally forgetting the bad side. And I think that's what specifically happened with Mahinda Rajapaksa. People kind of admired him a lot for kind of finishing the war and all these things, and people were like, is it okay, like it's totally okay if he robs the country, robs the wealth. But then it kind of reached an unbearable amount, so something like that. If it is too much, you may you may switch it off for increase or decrease, whatever. Okay. Right. So, yeah, and now she's asking, and so you like this man's sisters too. The character you hated, their manners are not equal to his. So now Elizabeth wants to know whether Jane has read these characters, whether Jane is aware that if she ever gets married to Bingley, her life is not going to be an easy one with those kind of sisters. So here she says certainly not at first. But again you can see Jane 100% knows that these people are not nice. These sisters are not nice. They are very kind of very big headed. Yeah. But they are very pleasing women when you converse with them. So she is kind of trying to hide or sugarcoat there. You can see sugarcoating here. An ideal example of sugarcoating. Yeah. So she's kind of trying to tone down Reverend. Maybe you should write that word as well. Tone down, toning down something. It's like you are trying to kind of, decrease the weight of that word or that phrase. Yeah, toning down. Yes. And Miss Bingley is to live with her brother and keep his house. Again, this shows the contemporary socio-cultural idea of gender, Reverend. Yeah, so here you know that Bingleys are coming from this upper class. But still, the women or the ladies of that class also had to housekeep. So they were responsible of housekeeping. It's not like that they had to cook and they had to do all these things, but kind of to manage the household. Yeah. So that shows the idea of gender, contemporary idea of gender. Even these ladies from the upper class had to keep house. And I'm much mistaken if we shall not find a very charming neighbor in her. Again, you can see that she is again trying to decrease the weight of her argument. She wants to say that these people are not nice, but she is toning down a lot, right? Can one of you read the next paragraph, Reverend? Maybe the next paragraph? And the other one as well, so that we can complete Pride and Prejudice today. Yeah, up to this, you may complete Mr. Bingley inherited property, that part as well.
Elizabeth listened in silence, but was convinced their behavior and the assembly had not been calculated to please in general, and with no quickness of observation and less
Pliancy, yes.
of temper and her sister, and with the judgment too, unassailed by many attempts to herself. She was very little disposed to approve them. They were in fact very fine ladies, not deficient in good humour when they were pleased, nor in the power of making themselves agreeable when they chose it, but proud and conceited. They were rather handsome, had been educated in one of the first private seminaries in town, had a fortune of 20,000 pounds, were in the habit of spending more than they owed, and of associating with people of rank, and were therefore in every respect entitled to think well of themselves, and mainly of others. They were of a respectable family in the north of England, a circumstance more deeply impressed on their memories than that their brother's fortune and their own had been acquired by trade. Mr. Bingley inherited property to the amount of nearly 100,000 pounds from his father, who had intended to purchase an estate, but did not live to do it. Mr. Bingley intended it likewise, and sometimes made choice of his county, but as he was not provided with a good house and the liberty of a manor, it was doubtful to many of those who best knew the easiness of
Okay, Ravan, thank you. So here you can see Elizabeth is kind of listening in silence but was not convinced. Their behavior at the assembly had not been calculated to please in general. That means their behavior was not nice, literally, simply that is the idea. And with more quickness of observation. Again, a comparison between Jane and Elizabeth. Elizabeth's characteristic, she is very quick in observing and less pliancy of temper than her sister. Pliancy means reverence, changeability, change. Yes, and so here you can see her temper is not like changing like her sisters, because that means Jane is someone who would change her opinion quickly, but when it comes to Elizabeth it is very solid. Yeah, it is not going to change. And with a judgment too unassailed, it's like too unaffected by any attention to herself. Assailed, when you consider the word assailed, the dictionary meaning is like attacking, but here unattacked, something like it is not kind of affected. Yeah, that's why when you read that, you cannot just go with the dictionary meaning. Can you remember that day? Yeah, there were some different meanings. Yes, and she was very little disposed to approve them. That means Elizabeth is not going to approve, right, these ideas, because she has read these characters better. Bingley's sisters, they were in fact very fine ladies, but again in societal standards, these are not Elizabeth's thoughts. In societal standards, they are fine ladies. Not deficient in good manner, not devoid of good humor when they were pleased, knowing the power of being agreeable when they chose it. So again you can see they were they can be good humored, and also they can be, what is this other word, good humor and yes, agreeable. So they can be agreeable and good humor. That means literally they can be nice when they chose to be nice. What is the idea there, Urban? What does that tell you about these people? Should we be nice when we want to be nice, or when we kind of select to be nice for like a selected few, or to everyone in general? Everyone in general, right? But these people, they are being nice when they kind of selected, for a selected few, when they want to be nice at selected occasions. Yeah, so that's how a person can be judged as well. So a person can be kind of very nice to a selected set of people, but his or her character is decided in the way that he or she would kind of treat to a kind of a street dog or a beggar or anyone, I would say, right? Not to kind of people who are above him or her, something like that. So they are such people, very pretentious and also very selective. So they are kind of being selective and nice. So that is very problematic, and Elizabeth sees that problematic nature, which Jane is unable to see.
She can see the real character.
Exactly, Rembrandt. So that's what happens here. So she is seeing the real character. They can be kind of nice to people when they select to be nice. Yeah, which is not kind of natural, right? Yeah. And yes, but proud and conceited. So conceited is like more than proud. That means very arrogant. Yeah, you can be proud about your achievements, but when you are being arrogant, that is something very unpleasant, right? Being arrogant of oneself. And they were rather handsome. Again you can see, can you remember that we discussed about this word handsome property? Yeah, so handsome is kind of identified with ladies back then as well. If you call a lady handsome today, I mean not you, right? Yeah, if a person calls a lady handsome, then it would be identified as kind of lack of knowledge. Yeah, as if you don't know English. But back then it was used with ladies. You can refer to the language, the difference of language. Had been educated in one of the first private seminaries in town, and I told you this was not a time even the upper class ladies were kind of sent to the universities, and they were receiving a very proper education. Not something like that. It's not like that you could be an academic or a doctor or someone like that, but here you can see when it comes to ladies, this education, even at this kind of like the basic education at seminaries, would be something kind of more related to propriety than the others. Because when it comes to Elizabeth, you see that can you remember that scene where Elizabeth is questioned about playing piano and reading and all these things, whether you have received a proper education? That head lady, the very vicious one, Darcy's aunt, she's questioning Elizabeth at this round table, just like this table. They are kind of seated in this round table when they were taking meals. Question, yeah. So this idea about education. So again, this is not like a very proper education, but kind of up to the standard, kind of comparatively. At that time, this was something, and this happens with Great Expectations as well. Can you remember? Not even once in the movie, Pippi is shown going to school, because he was even at this schooling age, but not going to school. But when you read the book, you would see that he is kind of sent to some kind of a school. But the large part of their lives is being self-taught, and even with Elizabeth, you can see. So the larger part of her life, it is being self-taught. It's not like they were having kind of a very proper education. But when it comes to these ladies, it is different than Elizabeth. One of the finest, or the one of the first private seminaries in town. And also when you say one of the first, that shows this is the time that ladies are kind of given education in these seminaries. It is starting. That's why it says one of the first, first seminaries in town. And also education was like not very compulsory for them, because that they were kind of having this wealth. And it's not like the modern society now. Education is like a class marker, Reverend, right? Don't you think so? It has become a class marker as well. Yes, there, yeah. And then, And what does this say about contemporary idea of gender, Reverend? A fortune of £20,000. When we compare it with the brothers' amount, can you remember? It is the amount of nearly £100,000. And here we are talking about a year. So for ladies it is £20,000 for all the sisters, but for the man, the son, it is what? 100,000. What does that say about the societal standards about gender, about inheritance? What does that say? Yes, Sandra? Yeah, aristocracy and also gender, Reverend. In even within aristocracy, what does that say about gender? The son receiving £100,000 from the father, but all the sisters £20,000 each. What is the idea there? Not exactly, Reverend. In terms of gender, what does that say? Son £100,000, but girls 20,000. I think this happens in Asian contexts as well. When there are several kids in the family, the sons kind of get more. Can you see that the son is receiving £100,000, but the girls 20,000 each? So that can be kind of equal, right? Maybe the son can also receive 20, or else they can kind of equally divide. But that doesn't happen. The son is receiving more or less. More. The son is receiving more. So there you can see the idea of gender. There, very strong presence of, I would say, gender, not exactly discrimination, but division of gender. Yeah, there you can see it. Yeah, division, because there were clear cut gender standards. In a way, discrimination, yes, you can refer to it as discrimination as well, but not very visible discrimination. Yeah, it is very systematic. Yeah, fortune of £20,000 were in the habit of spending more than they ought. And also you can see, even from the amount that they receive, they are spending more. So it's like, they like to show off in a way, you can say. Yeah. And of associating with people of rank. That means with this upper class people. So they have this habit of mingling with all these influencing people. Influencing as well as influential people. People who can influence. Therefore, in every respect, entitled to think well of themselves. So, what is the idea here, Reverend? They are entitled to think well of themselves. Entitled to think. That means they had all the right to think well of themselves. Entitled to think well of themselves. Yeah, that means they had the kind of, not the right, but it is like, they had all these opportunities. So when you are wealthy, right, when you are coming from a good family good, not like we cannot kind of say good and bad, in societal standards, so-called wealthy and higher class, right, and when you are kind of doing a good job or something like that, so that people think that they can be proud, right, that idea. So it is like according to the societal standards, they had all the rights to be proud. But what makes a person good is when they have all these things, when they choose to be humble, right? So in Darcy, when the kind of the novel unfolds, you see that Darcy has the right to be proud and conceited, right? But towards the end of the book, he kind of he's not actually proud. It's just that he is an introvert. And also that is the idea, in every respect entitled to think well of themselves and meanly of others. Meanly means, Reverend? Looking down on others? Yeah. Thinking, yeah. You are so mean? Yeah. Thinking meanly of others. So looking down on others. Looking kind of, thinking very negatively about others. Very kind of a discriminative manner. So that's what kind of Elizabeth is thinking, whether they have kind of all these rights to be proud and conceit, they can be humble. So they were from a respectable family in the north of England. So usually north of England is identified much kind of with a much hierarchy than the south of England. So that is also there's something in a way socio-political. So if you are asked to talk about the socio-political details about the novel, you may refer to all this North England and also the idea of gender, class, all these. A circumstance more deeply impressed on their memories than that their brother's fortune and their own had been acquired by trade. So here you can see again the writer is being kind of sarcastic. So when it is acquired by trade, that means, Reverend, it is not inherited by. Yeah, so it is not coming from like a generational wealth. So it has been acquired by trade. So that means in a way a self-made family, but now they are very influential even though it is a self-made family, right, at this point. And also they are more deeply impressed on their memories. That means they have purposely forgotten the part that these are acquired from trade. It's almost like everything is coming from this generational wealth. Yeah. So we read up to that point. Yeah, and also this. Okay. So from this point onwards, I won't ask you to read, Reverend. I will just go through because you have this chapter 5 as well, Reverend, right? It is also photocopied, so we will complete everything today. So Mr. Bingley inherited property to the amount of nearly 100,000. Again, the same fact that we discussed, how gender is a very kind of a crucial factor in economics as well. Gender is related to economics. Who had intended to purchase an estate but did not live to do it. So there was this idea that when you purchased an estate, you are kind of more wealthy. When you have an estate, it's like something like that, you are very influential. That is the idea. So here the fact that father did not live to do it means father was a self-made man. Even though they are coming from this respectable family, that respectable family is not having a generational wealth. It is self-made by trade. That's why the father was unable to buy this estate. If he was coming from grandfathers or forefathers who are having wealth, then so this is not even a question. So Mr. Bingley intended it likewise and sometimes made choice of his county. County means province. But but as he was now provided with a good house. County means province, Reverend. He was now, you found it, Reverence, right? But he was now provided with a good house and the liberty of a manor. Manor means a large country house. Manor. So it was doubtful to many of those who best. Reverend Andasari, could you find it?
Yes.
Okay. It is doubtful to many of those who best knew the easiness of his temper whether he might not spend the remainder of his days means the remaining days of his life, almost as if he is a very old person, at Netherfield and leave the next generation to purchase. So now people think Bingley has kind of purchased this estate and he might live in the town because he has this place at North England. But again he has brought this country house, this estate as well, in a way to show off his wealth. So now people are kind of being very doubtful, none of their business actually, but all these gossips revolving around these available bachelors who are married and wealthy. So that idea. So people are wondering what would they do, right? Whether they would kind of stay at this place, as in Bingley family, Bingley, whether once he get married to someone, whether he would stay there or in the town. So people are wondering about all this, and also this idea of leaving the next generation to purchase. That means this idea of generational wealth is going to be started from Bingley. So he is like the one to kind of purchase this estate, and that's why Darcy, when Darcy proposes to Elizabeth, the father says to Elizabeth that you would have fine courageous than Jane. That means Darcy is coming from this generationally wealthy family. Bingley also belongs to the upper class. Again, these wealthy, respectable family, but not as influential and generationally wealthy like Darcy. And his sisters were very anxious for his having an estate of his own. But though he was now established only as a tenant, Miss Bingley was by no means unwilling to preside at his table. Nor was Mrs. Hurst. Mrs. Hurst, can you remember? The eldest sister of Bingley who is married, the only one who is married. Who had married a man of more fashion than fortune. That means she doesn't have much wealth. Mr. Hurst, that means the husband of the eldest Bingley sister. So not much wealthy, but fashion means he's again like showing off. More kind of showing off, but doesn't have much of a wealth there. And yes, less disposed to consider his house as a home when it suited her. So here you can see the sisters are like, I would say, very opportunistic, seeking kind of trying to take the advantage of the opportunity, the fact that the brother has this estate, so they are trying to kind of come and reside there all the time, and opportunistic. Mr. Bingley had not been of age 2 years. So here the idea is, Reverend, the legal kind of age of a money of a man who, when he is able to handle money, is 21. I told you about this idea of giving a key. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that is the idea. Had not been of age means the legal age. You may write it there. The legal age to control money. The legal age to control money for a man. The legal age to control money for a man was 21. So when he was tempted by an accidental recommendation to look at Netherfield House, so he was looking for all these places and then he got this recommendation. He did look at it and into it for half an hour. So what does that say about his character? He only looked into it for half an hour, 30 minutes. Was pleased with the situation and the principal rooms, satisfied with what the owner said in its praise, and took it immediately. What does that say about his character? Buying an estate for just 30 minutes, and also according to the praise of the landowner. Usually these landowners, reverends, do they kind of say anything negative about a place? The brokers know, right? Always praising. So what does this say about Bingley's character? Exactly, very good, very good. Yeah, not mature. That is the word I was looking for. Exactly, in a kind of a childlike excitement. This is how children buy things, right? Toys. When they look at something, they just grab it. Something like that. Yeah, very, very immature and not very sensible. Yeah, you may write there, Reverend. Immature and sensible. So that is kind of shown in Bingley's character throughout. Yes, and yeah, between him and Darcy there was a very steady friendship, and that is shown in the movie as well, in spite of great opposition of character. So what does that say about Darcy? Kind of indirectly, that means Darcy is very sensible and very mature despite being an introvert. So the major difference between these two characters is extroversy and introversy. So Bingley is, very much extrovert, and Darcy is very much introvert. But when it comes to these two, again the other difference is Bingley can be very immature, as you said, but Darcy can be very mature. You see how he kind of handles the situations, yeah, all the time. Even Bingley is handled by him at the end. So yeah, even to propose, yeah, exactly. So Bingley was endeared to Darcy by the easiness, openness, and ductility of his temper. That means flexibility of his temper. So very easy, outgoing, open, and flexible. Someone very easy to associate with. Kind of a very bubbly personality. We call them very bubbly, just like a bubble. Yeah, very bubbly. So no disposition could offer a greater contrast to his own, right? So that means Darcy is totally different. A greater contrast, that means no disposition could offer a greater contrast means he's totally different. It's like, the almost the paradox of Bingley's character. Just like a juxtaposition when we consider these two characters. And though with his own, he never appeared dissatisfied. What does that say about Darcy? So Darcy knows that Bingley is easy-going, open, and also flexible, but he is not like that. He is well aware of that, but he is not dissatisfied about that. He is satisfied about his own character. What does that say about Darcy, Reverend? He is introvert and he is not very easygoing. Not very outgoing and easygoing. But again, the fact that he is satisfied with his character means he is totally okay of being like that, very self-aware. And also, what is the other word, the most proper word which goes with self, something that self-satisfied. Yeah, self-sufficient in a way. The best word would be self-satisfied, right? Satisfied. So he is totally satiated. Satiated is a synonym for satisfaction. Very self-satisfied. So he's totally okay of being like that. Sorry. Understanding Darcy was the superior. So here you can see Darcy is kind of very good in quick understanding. We discussed about this idea, Reverend, quick wit. Yeah, very very witty, very quick in understanding. Yes. Bingley was by no means deficient. It's not like that he is kind of a stupid person. But Darcy was clever. So here you can see drawing a comparison between the two male leads. So comparison between male leads. So that kind of happens. So here you could see that from the beginning, from the beginning to the middle of the chapter, female leads are compared, and now Austen is comparing male leads. So a technique. Yeah, you may write that, Reverend. A technique used by Austen. Comparison of leads. Comparison of leads, Reverend. LEAD leads. Yes, he was at the same time haughty. Haughty means it's like, arguably superior, reverence, very haughty. In a way, kind of arrogant as well. Superior in arrogance. Yeah, and also reserved. You know what is meant by reserved? Being very reserved, like you're not very kind of, very talkative. Yeah, reserved. Not kind of wanting to talk. And fastidious means, Reverend, very kind of, careful about minor details, very attentive to minor details. Yeah. Arrogantly superior, reserved, in a way kind of silent, and also fastidious means attentive to details. And you can see all these in his character when he does everything for Lydia, Wickham, and his manners, though well bred, were not inviting. What do you mean by inviting, Reverend? When someone is inviting, friendly, exactly, very friendly. So he's not inviting at all, Darcy, and because of his introversy, not because he's kind of a negative or a bad person. In that respect, his friend had greatly the advantage. But Bingley was the other way around, very inviting, very friendly. Bingley was sure of being liked wherever he appeared. So even at that party you could see, right, people, were kind of throwing themselves to Bingley and distancing themselves from Darcy. Darcy was continually giving offense. So always kind of very offensive. So people would feel very offensive in front of him. Yes. And the manner in which they spoke of the Meryton assembly was sufficiently characteristic. So that means the manner that they discussed about this assembly, the party that they had, it was very kind of, that discussion also showed these characteristics. That's what Austen is trying to say here, sufficiently characteristic. Bingley had never met with pleasanter people or prettier girls in his life. So it is like the best party. So he's almost like Jane. So you can see these characters are very alike. Jane and Bingley and Darcy and Elizabeth. and everybody had been most kind and attentive to him. So seeing all the positive side, there had been no formalities or no kind of wrong thing, no negative thing, no stiffness. That means no rigidness. Stiffness means rigidness. Yeah. So nothing negative has happened to him. So very optimistic, you can see. He had soon felt acquainted with all the room, so shows that he is an extrovert. And as to Miss Bennet, he could not conceive an angel more beautiful, so giving kind of like a heavenly presence to Jane. And Darcy, on the contrary, again showing their characteristics through these discussions, had seen a collection of people in whom there was little beauty and no fashion. So that means they were not pretty for him, and also no sense of fashion, for none of whom he had felt the smallest interest. Again, you can see this idea of love at first sight is rejected totally, right? It is rejected. And from none received either attention nor pleasure. So he was not at all pleased about this party. So totally opposite to Bingley. Miss Bennet, he acknowledged to be pretty, but she smiled too much. So always finding faults of characters. And so maybe smiling too much is identified with pretension. Yeah. And Mrs. Hurst and her sister allowed it to be so, but still they admired her and liked her, and pronounced her to be a sweet girl, and one whom they should not object to know more of. So here you remember Mrs. Hurst, reverence, right? Bingley's sister, the elder sister, and her sister allowed it to be so. They admired her and liked her. So they just admire her, but it's not like, to kind of, take into the family. Just a sweet girl, we don't mind getting to know her better. Something like that. Very average condition. Miss Bennet was therefore established as a sweet girl, and their brother felt authorized by such commendation to think of her as he chose. So it's like, that these sisters were not kind of objecting of kind of, it is not like that they were angry or else they were not kind of dissatisfied with Miss Bennet, but it is kind of an average ground. So, yeah. And because they were not disapproving of Miss Bennet, that means Jane, because they were not disapproving, this one, Bingley could also think of her. It's not like kind of, for a marriage, but it was kind of, in a way that he can associate with Jane, something like that. So there was that idea back then as well, kind of, associating with a girl, not for marriage, but just for the time pass. Yeah, something like that, because Bingley is not kind of, such a person with an integrity like Darcy. Yeah. Okay, so any questions from chapter 4, Everett? If not, we can complete chapter 5 as we have like 20 more minutes. If you have questions, of course, please ask. Okay, Ravan, then we will move to chapter 5. So within a short walk of Longbourn lived a family with whom the Bennets were particularly intimate. So it's like, the relationships are between families who belong to the same social class. Yeah, because they belong to the same social class. Sir William Lucas had been formerly in trade, again a self-made man. Formerly in trade means he has kind of, reached to this class, this upper class by trade. Like country gentry. So in Meryton, where he had made a tolerable fortune, kind of a considerable amount of wealth, he had been able to make, risen to the honor of knighthood. So not kind of, having generational wealth like Darcy, yeah, but risen to that estate. I told you about this idea of climbing the social ladder. So he has literally climbed the social ladder at this stage, not exactly the lower class, but somewhere in the middle class, and reached to the upper class by an address to the king during his mayoralty. So that means being a mayor, Reverend, kind of like the head of the town. Yeah, even nowadays we have this idea of mayor. And the distinction had perhaps been felt too strongly. It had given him a disgust to his business and to his residence in a small market town, and quitting them both, he had removed with his family to a house about a mile from Meryton. So what does this say? You have this part here, reference, right? Yeah. So here you can say that even though he has reached to this class from the middle class, now it is disgusting for him, right? The fact that the class that he came from, it is disgusting for him now. So that's why he removed with his family, not just kind of going to somewhere else, but removing. That means kind of a strong, kind of like a repulsion. It is like almost repulsive. That means he was hating. Yeah, great hatred. It's like abhorrence. So he doesn't like to live in this small market town. Even though he has started with trade, now he doesn't want to be there. And yes. Yeah, again you can see how he was kind of removed from this original place. Denominated from that period Lucas Lodge, where he could think with pleasure of his own importance. So that means he is very proud and arrogant about him, thinking about his own importance, thinking about himself as important, and unshucked by business. So now kind of unshucked means like to be set free, Reverend. Yeah, freeing from business. So now not doing a job, not engaged in a job, occupy himself solely in being civil to all the world. So now kind of representing the upper class and just doing nothing. So there's this kind of criticism as well throughout. These upper class people are not doing anything, just staying idle. That idea, Austen was kind of critical about that. Not kind of serving the country. So this is being ironic, being civil to all the world. So here you can see a great deal of irony, Reverend, irony plus sarcasm in this first paragraph. Yeah, and for though elated by his rank, it did not render means provide him supercilious. Supercilious means superior. So even though he was elated, he climbed the social ladder, still he could not think of kind of himself as superior, because he's coming from another class. It did not render him supercilious, and it's like not kind of the society was not giving him that status. On the contrary, he was all attention to everybody because people are talking about him. That happens, right, when a person kind of reaches, let's say that a person kind of win a lottery, right? Yeah, what happens when a family wins a lottery? So that becomes the talk of the town. So people know how this person reached higher. So people would talk, something like that. And by nature inoffensive, friendly and obliging, his presentation at St. James's had made him courteous. So that means he had to work on his social class. It's not like it was kind of naturally given to him, just like to Darcy. So all these can be a comparison with Darcy. Darcy is already having the social class, but they are kind of trying hard to achieve that social status. That is the idea there, Reverend. And yeah, we have around 4 minutes. We will just read the next paragraph as well. Lady Lucas was a very good kind of woman, not too clever to be a valuable neighbor to Mrs. Bennet. Again you can see, I told you that women were not receiving proper education, and here we were discussing about the first kind of seminary where this Miss Bingley attended. Yeah, and here not clever enough to be a valuable neighbor, but Mrs. Bennet, they had this self-taught idea, and also some sort of education was there for them. But here you can see they were not very clever enough. They had several children. The eldest of them, a sensible, intelligent young woman. So here you find kind of the intellectual equal to Elizabeth. Even Jane is not an intellectual equal. Not exactly an equal, but in a way they were compatible. Yeah, they could kind of, associate with. A sensible, intelligent young woman about 27 was Elizabeth's intimate friend. Can you remember who is this person? The one who gets married to this father? Yeah, when rejected by Elizabeth.
Oh,
Yeah, so there you can see that the Miss Lucases and Miss Bennet should meet to talk over a ball was absolutely necessary. It's like this small talk that they had to get together. It is kind of, it is required by the society as well. Morning after the assembly brought the former to Longbourn to hear and to communicate. So you began the evening well, Charlotte, said Mrs. Bennet with civil self-command to Miss Lucas. You were Mr. Bingley's first choice. So now Mrs. Bennet is kind of, trying to enter the topic. I told this is like kind of a social requirement as well, to gather and talk whether they want it or not. And also they were kind of, now they are like getting used to this idea of having a talk over a ball. But he seemed to like his second better. So who was the second? Second choice was Jane. But it was the best choice. So now Mrs. Bennet actually wanted to enter this topic. But she's pretending. This was kind of, this is not what I wanted to talk about. Oh, you mean Jane, as if surprised. But that's what she wanted to kind of lead the discussion. I suppose because he danced with her twice. So intentionally hurting Charlotte in a way. To be sure that did seem as if he admired her. Indeed, I rather believe he did. So she's kind of repeating it and emphasizing. I heard something about it, but I hardly know that something about Mr. Robinson. Okay, so it's 11:30 now, reverends, but we have only one page left. Yeah, so we will complete this next Monday and start Great Expectations. Yeah. So it won't be like the first 5 chapters, maybe some chapters here and there, reverend.
Yes, only our presentation.
All right, but it won't take much time, reverend, right? Just 15 minutes now. After that, we will complete Pride and Prejudice, and definitely we will start Great Expectations. I will, during the course of